Hi, welcome to Splashpage. I'm Andrew, and we're back doing videos. Today, I want to talk to you about violence. Specifically, how does Omni-Man use violence in Amazon's Invincible? Now, it's hard not to talk about violence when you're discussing this show. We've already done it a number of times, from how many people did Omni-Man kill, to breaking down the fight between Omni-Man and the Guardians of the Globe, to the Battle Royale at Machine Head's office, to every rundown of every episode. This is one bloody show. But today I want to focus less on the what and more of the why. As in, how and why does Omni-Man use violence to make a point? By this point, we all know that Omni-Man isn't the altruistic superhero come to Earth to save the day, despite what he's told everyone for all of these years. He's been playing the role of superhero because, luckily for him, superpowered people exist on this Earth, and it makes it slightly easier for him to fit in. But altruism isn't exactly the motivation of anyone growing up on Omni-Man's home planet of Viltrum. They see themselves as the epitome of life in the universe, stronger, better, faster than everyone else.
Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Like any civilization bent on global, or in this case, universal domination, land and resources are kind of the main point. But the Viltrumites have added a layer of rationalization to their motives. Due in part to their incredibly long lifespans, their technology in medicine is far superior to that of most, if not all, other planets. They get to see themselves as the saviors of the universe, bringing technology and medicine to the miserable lives of the inhabitants of the less fortunate planets. They get to pretend to be the good guys while playing the part of the villain. So let's look specifically now at how Omni-Man uses violence to get what he needs throughout the series. Generally, the most common defense for violence is self-defense. But Omni-Man can't ever really claim self-defense, seeing as he's nearly indestructible, until maybe the final episode when Cecil sends his creatures out after him. The Reanimen weren't even really a threat for very long, and Omni-Man ripped them apart and flew off pretty quick. The souped-up kaiju is really the only thing to get even close to taking him out. When Omni-Man fights the Mauler twins alongside the Guardians in Episode 1, the Maulers are way overpowered by the team and never really stand a chance. At least not in Omni-Man's eyes, and honestly, I think even the rest of the Guardians saw this fight as a foregone conclusion, with the only question being how many people would be injured or killed before they apprehended the Maulers. But Omni-Man has taken it pretty easy, never really too concerned for the outcome. In retrospect, knowing what we know now, he might have even been okay if the Maulers killed one or more of the Guardians. But he's also smart enough to know that if a Guardian fell while he was in the fight, it wouldn't look good for him. All the way up until Episode 7, Omni-Man only uses violence for tactical purposes or to cause fear. When he kills the Guardians, that's solely a tactical decision. He needs to take out Earth's defenses before the Viltrumite invasion. And when he murders all those Flaxans, that's probably a little bit of revenge for them grabbing him and shutting the portal behind him, but it's mostly tactical. He uses fear of global destruction to force the Flaxan scientists to find him a way home. Sure, he could have probably gone about getting home in a different way, probably getting the same results with way less deaths. But he's also proving a point and making a decision based on his overall battle plan for Earth. He's letting the Flaxans know that Earth is off limits for them, while also decimating their numbers to make them less of a threat in the process, and using that show of force to put the fear of Omni-Man into their scientists to create a portal for him to go home. And it's not the only time he's used fear to get what he wants. Like in that scene where he and Mark are holding a mad scientist miles above the Earth, and they're just not getting what they want. until Omni-Man drops him and lets him fall from a mile above the earth before catching him to continue his interrogation. Everything up to this point has been solid battle tactics on top of a layer of fear. But now let's move into episode 8, where emotion comes into play. Every time Omni-Man has used violence, it's been with someone he hasn't really cared about, until he has to explain himself to his son, who doesn't take it all that well. You could see he doesn't want to kill Mark right away, otherwise he'd have just snapped his neck when Mark first attacked. It's the first time he's really cared about the person he's had to convince, and he doesn't know any other way other than violence. So when Mark went in for that first punch, Omni-Man's first reaction was to smash Mark's face across the planet, using violence to convince him that people just don't matter. He could have easily restrained his son, tried to explain himself while keeping his distance, or he could have tossed Mark into the desert and beat the crap out of him there. But everything he smashes during this final sequence is designed to kill as many people as possible. He pops the skull of a pilot Mark has just saved to prove to him that human life doesn't matter. He threw him through a building and ripped up a busy street to make the point that people are fragile and meaningless. He pushed him through a subway car at full speed, killing people with Mark's own face, to show him how much more resilient they are than humans. How it doesn't matter how many people they kill. Other people on the show use violence differently. Mark always gets his sudden burst of energy from his own anger, kind of like a poor man's Hulk, calling out his war scream as he furiously attacks someone who's gotten him in a tough place, and usually to save someone he cares about, because Mark cares about people. Cecil uses violence to stop threats, but he's always calculated about it, if not calm. He keeps a cool head but feels that what he's doing is the only recourse to his current situation, and he would do something else if he could. When Debbie tells him that she's always hated him as he sends a kaiju to kill both Omni-Man and Invincible, who just so happens to be in the way, he responds by telling her that he's always hated himself too. He's been thrust into a position where the only solution he can see to an imminent situation happens to be violence, and he's not necessarily happy about it. Other people like Rexplode get joy from violence. He seems to be trying to set the world right to make up for his poor upbringing, and Eve uses violence because that's how she was taught she could save people until she finds a better way to help. But Omni-Man generally uses violence as a first resort because that's the way of Viltrum. The strong survive. And if violence doesn't work, maybe then he'll try something else, but it rarely ever comes to that. The final fight in episode 8 wasn't just about Omni-Man and Invincible beating the crap out of each other. That was a conversation between a father and a son. Omni-Man does his best to explain his past, and Mark's reaction is anger and to try to punch his way out of it, because he grew up watching his father beat up the bad guys. He feels angry and foolish for not seeing it before, and he can't believe that his father's been lying to him all of this time. And his violence tends to come out of anger in this series. And Omni-Man reacts the way we expect him to, by punching Mark in the face. It's that age-old saying, if you can't join him, beat the crap out of him. That's the saying, right? As they fight in the air, Cecil sends the bomber pilots after them. Omni-Man stops his battle to wreck the planes just to show Mark how much stronger they are than humans. How humans need so much firepower just to mimic a fraction of their own power. Mark switches back to save the pilot falling to his death, and Omni-Man takes a break from chasing down the second pilot to stop by his son and kill the man he just saved. This is Omni-Man saying, look at how fragile and meaningless they are. Omni-Man flies off to kill the second pilot, but Mark sticks to his guns and flies off to knock his father off course, because these are still his people, and he won't stop fighting for them just because he has Viltrum in his blood. The two of them have a brief conversation. Mark is upset that his father ended the pilot's life, and Omni-Man is upset at seeing weakness in his son. And to combat this weakness, he punches him through downtown Chicago, killing hundreds if not thousands of people in the streets. But even with all that sudden destruction, when Mark gains his bearings, he still tries to save one woman and her child from a collapsing building. For Mark, every life counts. For Omni-Man, none of them do. No matter how many times they punch each other in the face, that gap will never get closed. Once again, Omni-Man flies in and coolly blames his son for all the death and destruction, and his stubbornness to yield to the inevitable takeover of Earth by Viltrum. Omni-Man argues in this moment that in the grand scheme of things, all human life is worthless. People are weak, and they die quickly, and they do nothing meaningful in between. Omni-Man would have probably gotten along really well with the English philosopher who wrote in The Leviathan that the life of man is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. At least they probably would have gotten along until Omni-Man popped his skull. When Omni-Man tells Mark that in the long run, even his mother's life is meaningless, that hits the anger chord with Mark, who takes the offensive once again, only to be smashed through the ground and used as a shield as dozens and dozens of subway passengers explode across his body. Omni-Man falls back on loyalty to Viltrum over happiness in his home life, and Mark takes another swing, easily dodged. Omni-Man takes the battle back to the sky to try to talk some sense into Mark one more time. As he punches his son through the clouds like a human pinball, Omni-Man almost takes the blame onto himself, but in the way that's really blaming Mark for not being stronger, when he says that he should have taught Mark better and raised him to be a Viltrumite instead of a human. This is the closest Omni-Man comes to apologizing, but it doesn't stop him from smashing his son through a cruise ship, sinking the boat and killing a lot of people inside before tossing Mark into the face of a mountain, causing a deadly avalanche. For the final time, Omni-Man tries to talk it out. He explains to Mark that they're here to convince Earth to surrender, to become part of something bigger or die. It's his final argument, and it falls on deaf ears. And as he pounds his fists into Mark's skull, he suddenly has a moment of zen amidst the carnage. A memory of a time long ago when things were simpler, when his wife showed him how to find joy in his son one day years ago watching a Little League game. He holds back his final punch, unable to do what needs to be done, and wonders aloud why Mark would fight him so hard on this. But Mark knows the one thing that Omni-Man doesn't, that in 500 years, when everyone they knew is dead and gone, he and his father would still have one thing left: each other. And that's the moment that Omni-Man knows he's lost this battle. He can't convince his son to join him, and he can't bring himself to kill his son either. It's over. That's the moment when he realizes, for the first time, that violence doesn't make everything better, and instead of ending his son's life, he realizes that Mark is the only person he truly loves. And Omni-Man doesn't have the skills or really the opportunity to stick around after that battle and try to work things out on Earth. So he does the only thing that he can do. He flies off into outer space, away from everyone, with a tear in his eye, to think about his actions and figure out what comes next. He's failed here. He can't take over Earth unless he kills his son, and he can't bring himself to kill his own son. He knows there will be repercussions from his superiors back home on Viltrum, but he's found himself in an impossible situation. The first time, violence wasn't the answer. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll be ramping up to Y the Last Man season, which is coming out sometime next month. And then in October, we've got New York Comic-Con. So that's going to be exciting. I'll be there Friday and Saturday. So if you guys are there, come see me, say hi. Until next time, I'm Andrew, this is Splashpage, and I'll see you next time.